Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Rabbit and Fox Control. My name's Ian McFarland and I'm one of the Sheep Connect SA team and host for tonight's webinar. Tonight's webinar has been recorded and we'll share the link in coming days. We welcome you to revisit the content yourself and share it with your colleagues. So tonight's webinar is a result of Australian Wool Innovation and the SA Sheep Industry Fund that support Sheep Connect SA. And for more information on Sheep Connect SA, please visit the website or through Twitter. Today's presenter is Josh Rosser. Josh is the Rabbit Control Coordinator for PIRSA Biosecurity SA.
No worries. Thanks for that, Ian. Good evening, all. Yeah, like Ian said, I'm the PIRSA State Rabbit Control Coordinator, and yeah, spend a lot of my time running around the state talking about rabbits and fox control, and really it's trying to give everyone a few hints and tips on how to effectively manage their rabbits and tie that in with fox control as well. And so, yeah, basically the concept of tonight is really to give everyone a little bit of a 101 on rabbit and fox control, get some basics done. In a lot of our conversations with landholders, there's a few gaps missing, a few myths and misunderstandings about what best practice is, and really just trying to offer some efficiencies in why we need to really take this on board as part of our enterprise. Fox management is typically done in a reactive way, and what I want to sort of throw a few things at you is trying to be a bit more proactive with your fox control. So you've dealt with your rabbits in summer. Typically, most of us are autumn lambers, and when we're looking at our fox control, most people are worried about how many foxes they kill. That's not the best way of looking at it. You really need to focus on concentrate on reducing fox damage. So what I'm saying there is, as sheep producers, it's weaned lambs that make you money. So you've really got to make sure that your weaning percentage is improving following fox control. There's no good having, 140% birth rate if you're only weaning 100%. You're losing a lot. So we're really got to focus on improving our reducing, not improving, reducing the fox damage, and not be worried about how many foxes we're killing. And the reason why I say that is fox density is often very heavily underestimated. So in a forest or farm type environment, we're looking at around about 4 to 8 foxes per square kilometre. Now, most people are pretty surprised when I start throwing those figures around. It's been studied. So when you're sort of looking at your typical farm environments, you've got high concentration of water availability. You've got obviously plenty of sources of food. You've got mice, you've got lamb, you've got a myriad of other things available to the stock, to the foxes. So in a 10-kilometre radius from most sort of farm homesteads, you're looking at 4 foxes per kilometre squared, up to 1,200 foxes in a 10-kilometre radius, which is the size of the true problem. So when people sort of think they've gone out and been spotlighting and taken out 15 foxes in a night, which is not uncommon, you're really just you're right on the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more moving through the environment that we really understand. So how can we make our fox control more efficient is really what I wanted to talk to you about. So for a lot of people, like I said, they typically only do fox control just pre-autumn lambing. Okay, and the conversations are starting to come now. I'm seeing a lot of foxes around. Fox numbers are up, and typically what we're seeing is it's the young ones that are out dispersing. They're weaned. They're not particularly smart as far as they haven't been trained. They haven't become light shy. They haven't dealt with roads a lot before. So you're seeing them around quite commonly, and they're moving in looking through the environment, looking for new territories. So typically, if you're going to start an autumn lambing, start earlier. move in through and start your baiting earlier in that January, February period, and try and knock out as many of those young ones coming through the environment as possible. They're very, very transient. So you want to knock out a lot more, a lot earlier. A lot of people ring us, a fortnight beforehand. I want to get my fox baits. It's too late by then. You're going to have a lot of other food available as far as after birth and young lambs and things like that, which foxes readily go onto. So they're going to be a little bit more difficult to take the bait. So yeah, what I can suggest there is go a bit earlier. The other thing for a lot of people, which they don't do, which is something I can strongly recommend, is go for a spring baiting program. It's when the cubs are born. The vixens are hungry. They're trying to produce milk, and they're under a bit of pressure to perform. So they'll readily take a bait because it's a free option, and by taking the vixen out, you've effectively taken the cubs out as well. So you can really interrupt that cycle by getting two successful baiting programs per year, which typically not many people do, but it will really make a big difference to your performance of your weaning rates.
And Josh, we've got a question here in regards to lambing.
Yep.
We have July drop. Would you recommend baiting for our program?
Yes, absolutely. But go earlier and try and avoid the really wet July. Typically, 1080 in particular is very susceptible to moisture. So if you can go a little bit earlier and juggle the weather, certainly don't leave it until the fortnight before or even the month before. If you can go a little bit sooner, when it's not quite so wet, and try and get an impact earlier, it may make your July lambing more successful because you're taking the animals out of the environment before you're lambing.
Thanks, Josh.
No worries. So again, touching on 1080, because it is the most common form of control that we use, is 1080 baits. It's one of two registered poisons for fox control. PAP is the other one, which I'll talk about in a minute. For a successful fox control program with baiting program, placement is critical. All right. And the other thing that you need to consider is you've got a choice of flavours. Now, not many people understand that they have a lot of choices. So typically through the NRM, Natural Resource Management, the most common bait on offer is Fox Off, but you also have Fox Shield, Defox, or the availability of fresh injected meat baits. So Fox Off is meat based, it's meat meal. Fox Shield is fish based, different flavour, different smell. Defox is liver based, and fresh meat can be any choice of meat that you happen to bring along: cow, lamb, kangaroo, whatever it might be. So the advantages of offering different flavours are that the foxes get a choice, and you can spike some interest with the different variations of the bait flavours. So if a fox has received a sublethal bait, and what I mean is the bait's been out for a while, it's deteriorated, it may have got wet. The fox takes that, it gets sick from it, but it doesn't die from it because the chemical has broken down. It's very easy for the fox to become bait shy, and it won't touch that bait source again. So by giving an alternative option, you do run a much greater chance of getting a successful program by offering various meat flavours. Just stepping across now into PAP. Now I can't even pronounce that word, para-amino-propionophenone. Look, it's not a very commonly sold bait. It's a bait alternative, really, as something that you should be aware of. It is a toxic alternative for use in fox and wild dog baits. It's similarly controlled in that it's only available from Natural Resource Management officers, and the directions for use closely match 1080. The difference is that PAP works by basically starving the brain of oxygen. It's preventing oxygen transport to the brain, and effectively the animal just goes to sleep. So it's not as in your face as 1080 is. A lot of people have seen animals die from 1080, and a 1080 affects their central nervous system. PAP just allows them to go to sleep. So there's no secondary poisoning with it, and it does work slightly differently. and because it's been synthesized, it has an antidote. That antidote is called blue healer or methylene blue. Now, while saying that, yes, it does have an antidote, and that's going to be really good in some circumstances, there's a couple of things that you do need to be aware of. One is that you have to see the dog take the bait, and you've got about 45 minutes to get them to a vet after it's been ingested. Now, then they utilise the methylene blue. Now, the methylene blue itself and the after vet care is been told to me that it is fairly tough on the animal's kidneys. So there's a few other things that you do need to consider, with that antidote. And a lot of vets don't actually carry the methylene blue. So if it's a bait substrate, the substance that you want to get into using, do be aware that yes, it does have an antidote, but there's a few factors involved with it, and your local vet may not stock it. So you want to have that conversation with them before you transfer. Part of the development of the antidote and so on has made this bait also significantly more expensive than 1080. So typically, again, we don't sell too many of these. Your 1080 based products are far more common, but this is an alternative and it is something that you can use in your toolbox if you do need to manage some other issues. So to give you a little bit of an idea of where and how we might place these baits, this is an image that could be anywhere, any sort of farmland, and you'll see a series of things here that I've put on the slide. Now, to run a successful program, more baits aren't necessarily better. Less can be far more effective. So if you look at where the stars are, there's some stars placed on the sort of top left of your screen, and they're on high ridge lines. Predators will tend to travel high as possible, and that allows them to get a better view of the landscape so they can see prey better. Predators will always travel along the path of least resistance. So there is some tracks up there, and also towards the center of your screen, as you can see the scrub line, there's a track that's running around that scrub line. So predators will travel on those tracks, the path of least resistance, because they're hunters. Now, if a hunter can't hunt, which effectively means if it can't run, it can't eat. So they use the tracks, they use the pads of livestock. They'll use dry water courses, anywhere where there's not a lot of undergrowth, not a lot of brush, nothing sharp that's going to damage their feet. Like I said, if they can't run, they can't hunt. If they can't hunt, they can't eat. So along road lines, along tracks, highly effective places to put bait. You'll see the yellow lines there are little fingers of scrub, which predators will use to travel out into the paddocks and stuff to get closer to their prey. And that allows them to use the cover effectively. And so those little islands of scrub, and you can see there's the other islands towards the bottom of the screen there. Again, they'll hole up in there and use that for cover, where those black triangles are. Really opportune places to lay some bait and really get good results. Other things that they'll do is they'll use landmarks in the environment. So if you've got a lone power pole in a paddock, an old fallen tree, out somewhere by itself, a carcass where something's died, and obviously the other stock aren't camping around that. Not on water points, but near water points also, great places to put bait. By thinking cleverly, you'll allow yourself to get much better uptake and be far more effective with your number of baits that you need to place, rather than just going for bulk baits. Place them effectively, you're getting a much better result. When a fox takes a bait, scratch a little sand pad so you can see where that bait is, and you'll see when a fox picks it up, it goes hand over hand, paw over paw, for want of a better word, and it's very surgical and plucks the bait out of the ground. Whereas if a dog gets to that area, you'll notice that it's a lot messier. There's basically dirt sprayed all over the place, but foxes are almost surgical in the way they remove the bait from your bait station. So it just gives you an idea of what is removing your bait and making sure that you're getting the target that you want. It could be something else. It could be a wild dog in the area. Some people have had issues with that. Some people have had town dogs coming through and straying and attacking their sheep and so on. So it gives you an idea of what your program is really targeting, or what's picking up those baits. But yeah, a few simple tips there to try and just give you some benefit in where to place your bait. It's far more efficient to put less baits in the right spot than bulk baits. Shooting, as far as fox control goes, again, it's labour intensive. It's not highly successful as I relate it back to the potential number of animals within the area. It does make you feel better because there is that instant result. It's less effective on adult foxes, so ones that have been chased or shot at before, likely that you're not going to get too many goes at those. Obviously, many people utilise the spotlighting and whistling techniques. Another thing that is not uncommon is fox drives. So you get a number of people and animals forming groups, large groups, and flushing foxes out of their harbour, chasing them or flushing them towards their shooters. Can be successful. I know some fairly successful ones that have occurred down the southeast. Again, shooting it's labour intensive. You're going to get the young, dumber ones that aren't exposed or haven't been exposed to it as often beforehand. It's a tool, but on a landscape scale, it's not highly effective. Trapping is another tool that's used. Trapping foxes, again, it's fairly tough to do right. The fox here that is in the image was one that I actually trapped when I was working in the southeast. It went onto the trap and it was actually stealing golf balls. As you can see, there's a golf ball in the trap there. We used that as bait because that was what it was after. And if you're going to be successful with any sort of predator program, you have to give them what they want. In this case, she was after golf balls. It was a bit of a one-off. We got lucky in that she took the bait readily, and that there was no mistakes made, for want of a better word, with that trapping program. If you have a misfire with a trap or something goes wrong, very difficult to get a fox back near the trap. They do learn very quickly. So like I said, it's the same process with the rabbit trapping. Small steel jaw traps are prohibited in South Australia. It's not really effective for large scale control, but in certain circumstances where, like I said, with this fox, she was a problem, we didn't have baiting or other options available to us, we were successful. Traps have to be used in accordance with the relevant state and territory legislation, and any live trap foxes must be euthanized as soon as possible. So the other tools that you have available to you as far as fox management goes is you've got guardian animals. Maremma dogs are proving to be fairly popular, as are alpacas. Many people are starting to go down those paths. By using guardian animals, you also have to consider the animal welfare and the other impacts that managing those animals. So, for example, the alpacas have to be shorn. Guardian dogs have to be trained. You can't just pluck one out of the pound and turn him out and hope that he's going to do his job. It requires a considerable amount of training. Fox lights, some people swear by them, some people don't. Basically, they're a light that is a randomly firing light that is supposed to simulate someone out spotlighting. Some people have great success with them. Some people have found them to be almost useless. So it's a little bit horses for courses. Some people, like I said, have had great success and swear by them. Den fumigation. Den fumigation is pretty labour intensive, similar to the rabbit side of things. The problem with fox den fumigation is you don't actually know if the fox is down there or not, and they will use multiple dens throughout their territory. So it can be a little bit hit and miss. If you do find a den, I strongly recommend, yes, destroy it, but be aware that it may be an unsuccessful attempt because it may be empty at that point in time. So just to wrap up the fox management side of things, is really understand your problem. Like I said, fox numbers are usually fairly grossly underestimated. It really is better if you're going to do a fox management program to work with others and work out what your objectives are. Like I said, as sheep producers, which predominantly is what most of this audience will be tonight, is to wean more lambs. And so develop a plan based around that. Do all of your control programs legally. If we do our baiting programs illegally, so like I said, misuse of the 1080, not doing neighbour notifications, illegal trapping and those sorts of things, we'll lose them as tools. And really in the 1080 space, we don't have anything that's as effective or as cheap at this point in time. So make sure you do it legally. Select the appropriate techniques. If one technique's not working for you, so if you're using Fox off and you're not getting great result, try Fox Shield, try Defox, try some fresh meat, try a different variation where you're placing those baits, and keep monitoring, keep evaluating, keep adapting. Keep trying different things. Old foxes understand the trap. That's how they get old. You've got to be smarter than what you're trying to manage. So yeah, do put a little bit of thought into it. To wrap it up, really is what I'm trying to suggest to you is think outside the square, be effective and efficient in how you do programming. You can get some results that will really improve your on-farm performance. And that's about it for tonight. Is there any further questions that have sort of cropped up, Philippa?
Yeah, we do have one question. Josh, how far will they travel, foxes?
Foxes will comfortably travel over 10 kilometres a night. So yeah, don't feel that you're managing foxes in a very, very localised area. They will have territories, they'll stick to those territories, but if they're under pressure, or they're, particularly the young ones as they're dispersing, they will travel 10 kilometres a night without a problem.
I'd like to thank everybody who joined the webinar today. I'd like to thank Josh for sharing his insights and expertise. If you have any additional questions, feel free to contact us via the Sheep Connect SA website, follow up any further queries. So just like to thank AWI and Sheep Industry Fund again for support of Sheep Connect, and thank you for your time and have a wonderful evening.